Hello everybody, new video here from Bicotic. Canyon have released the new Grail, and I think this bike is going to sell like hotcakes. And in this video we'll look at what Canyon have changed on this new version of the Grail, compare it to the old one. We'll also compare it to some of its siblings in the Canyon lineup. We'll compare it to some of the competition, and then we'll have a look through the new range of Canyon Grails, see what's on offer at all the different price points. And then I'll maybe have a think about which one, if I was going to buy one, which one I was going to buy. So Canyon aren't just selling us a bike, they're selling us a dream, a lifestyle. So let's have a quick look through and see what that might be. So immediately it's kind of rugged. The new Fast. It's ready to race or embark on a gravel odyssey. It has inspiring handling. It's compliant, rough stuff, lightweight, aero, uphill, downhill. Some of the Grails in the range have integrated storage, and the dream is long rides and all-terrain speed. So if you are aspiring to the Canyon Grail dream, you're going to ride this puppy on a bit of tarmac to get yourself out there and into the rougher stuff. But you also want to do it fast, and you may even want to put a couple of bags on. So let's check out the new Grail against the old Grail. We've played through to the old Grail, back and forth. You can see the old Grail was a very peculiar looking thing, mostly because it was designed to incorporate these weird double-decker handlebars, sort of biplane looking things. I always thought they were weird, and I would have definitely never wanted to have to change the bar tape on them. That looks like it would blow my mind trying to do that. My OCD gets freaked out just doing a normal pair of bars, even at the best of times. So it was a peculiar, odd-looking bike. I was never into it. But the new bike, much more traditional looking thing, and I think that's a good plan from Canyon. I think that's much more desirable. And if we do fade back and forth, we can clearly see there's a dramatic difference in the geometry. And that is that even though the chainstays are the same length, the front center, so the front axle to the bottom bracket, is way longer on the new version. This is the new version, old, new. So they've kicked that front wheel out. We've got a 1 degree slacker head angle, and on a medium size, the wheelbase is plus 28 mils. And what that means is if we point the bike downhill, fade back and forth, you're going to see that you're going to get a lot more stability from the new bike as it pushes that front wheel forwards. And it's going to give you a lot more confidence, I would think, on the rougher stuff going downhill. So with the new Grail slammed like it is in this photo, if we compare it to the old version, you're going to be lower at the front and slightly more stretched out. The new Grail has quite a long top tube and quite a short stem. So the shorter the stem, the quicker the steering, and the wider your handlebars, the slower the steering. But I guess what it does mean is you've got a bit more space up here to stick a bag on. Both the new bike and the old bike have maximum clearance of 42 mils, so you can fit up to a 42 mil tire on. The new Grail appears to have a 42 tooth chainring, whereas the old one had a 40. You can see what that does to the gearing down there. On the new bike, you're going to spin out slightly less on the downhill, but you have sacrificed a little bit of uphill. The new Grail seems to come with semi-integrated cabling, and we've done away with the split springy seat post. This CFR version has got a one-piece bar and stem, and this new bar has this little thing on here for attaching Garmins and Wahoos, and you can also put a pair of tri-bars on. I think that's pretty cool. You get the mount on there like that. Now another feature on here, which we've seen on various other bikes like the Diverge, is the fantastic idea of a little storage hole in the down tube. I'm a massive fan of this. I'd like to have it on all my bikes. And what it is a little cover that you take off, and you've got your little multi-tool, and you get a bag that slips all the way down this down tube, and you can stick whatever you like in it, stick your sandwiches in it. I think that's wicked, because I hate having a little saddlebag hanging off the seat. I've never thought that looks cool. So the Grail has various siblings in the Canyon lineup, and it's quite handy to compare them back to back in Bicotic and get an idea of where they fall on the spectrum. So let's load up some more bikes from Canyon, and let's start with the Ultimate. Let's load up this one, the CF SLX9, because I rather like the colour. This is the Endurace Di2 version, and it's going to set you back a fairly hefty 8.5 grand. And if we fade back and forth between that and the Grail, you can see that we have come from the same DNA stock, but that we do have quite a different geometry, especially out front. The bike is clearly longer and taller at the front, and this is where you can see the short stem, long top tube against the shorter top tube, longer stem, which brings a touch point to about the same place, except clearly lower on the Ultimate. The Grail's front wheel is kicked out a long way further, and it does have longer chainstays. So the Ultimate, it's a road bike designed mostly for going fast on the road and racing. It's still a pretty versatile bike because it will take up to a 32mm tyre. So next up in the Canyon range is the Endurace. Let's load up this one. This is the Endurace CFR Di2. This is the 2024 version. Again, it's the top tier CFR, so it's pretty expensive, nearly £9,000. And if we fade that back to the Grail, that looks something like that. And as we've come to expect, the front wheel is sticking out further. But in this case, the Endurace is actually a little bit taller than the Grail. And the touch points on these two versions coming in pretty similar, really. Chainstays on the Grail are 10mm longer. But again, it's that front wheel really sticking out further on the Grail. Look at that. So the Endurace, this is your endurance road bike designed for comfort. And what I like about the Endurace is, unlike some other bikes like the Roubaix from Specialized, the Endurace is, well, it looks much more like a road race bike, except designed to be more comfortable and easier to live with on a long ride. So you still look like you're on a super fast road race bike, but it is more of an endurance bike. And this version will take up to a 35mm tyre. So again, super versatile bike. But when the road gets rougher, more gravelly, the Grail is going to come into its own. Okay, so as far as the spectrum goes, it would go Ultimate Endurace. Then it would be, normally it would be the Grail. And then we would have the Grizl, which I've always thought of as Canyon's more burly gravel bike. Let's load up this one, the Grizl CF SLX8 1x. I won't load up the one with suspension on because that's a bit confusing. So here it is, the Grizl, what I always considered to be Canyon's most burly gravel bike. If we compare that to the Grail, here's the Grail. Ooh, that's a bit confusing, isn't it? Because again, the Grail's front wheel is way further forwards than even the Grizl. So the Grizl's wheelbase in a medium is 20mm less than the Grail. So I was not expecting that. The Grizl will take up to a 50mm tyre. So I've got to say, I thought the Grizl would be more grizzly than the Grail. So this would lead me to think that the Grizl will be up for a design tweak pretty soon. And maybe it will too get the more out front wheel. There we go. Slightly confusing choice right now between the Grizl and the Grail. So what about the competition to this new Canyon Grail? Well, apart from its own sibling, the Grizl, I thought we could have a look at some of the big players. And it just so happens that today, as I was making this, Merida have brought out the new Silex. Always loved that name. And if you remember the Silex, it was a weird looking thing. We've now got a new version that Matej Mohoric actually won the UCI Gravel World Championships on. Well, Merida have now released it, and here is the Silex 7000. Here we go. Now, interestingly, this is the top of the range Silex, and it actually is only £3,000. So Merida very much going for that sort of middle tier of price point. This version is coming with 12-speed GRX and a whopping great 1151 on the back. And personally, I think this looks a lot better than the old Silex. So let's have a look and see what it looks like next to the Grail. There we go, fading from the Silex to the Grail. And interestingly, the Silex front wheel is even further forwards. Whew. Silex also has a bunch of mounting points on the fork there that we can see. It does have the underside mounting point there, but they're a bit further towards the seat post. Chainstays, the Silex is a little bit longer and clearly up front. Similar sort of cable design, but the Silex is quite a lot taller. 16mm in the medium version. So it's a big old bike, this Silex. This will take up to a 45mm tyre. Now, I couldn't find any other pictures on Merida's website, but I think it's quite a nice looking bike. I'm a big fan of black and gold, and for £3,000, I know it's still mechanical group set, but I think this is a pretty cool bike. While I was researching the Silex, I also came upon the Scultura Endurance, and there's a GR version, which I'd not seen before, and that's this. This is the GR 8000. Couldn't find a price or a weight for this on the Merida website, but actually if you compare that to the Silex, you can see how much of a whopper the Silex is. Look at that. And actually on the Merida website, they do suggest buying the Scultura Endurace GR over the Silex if you're all about gravel speed. So there we go. Okay, so back to the Grail. Let's load up something from Specialized. Let's load up the Diverge. Okay, so this is the S-Works Diverge STR, a magnificent £13,000. This comes with the SWAT storage on it, which I rather like. Bit of a dull grey colour. It's got the weird old Future Shock, which is funny that it's called the Future Shock because it looks really old-fashioned to me now. And then it's got the weird sort of bionic arm at the back here, which is quite a divisive piece of kit. Looks a bit odd, doesn't it? Now, if we fade that through to the Grail, we can see that the Grail is a bigger bike, longer wheelbase, yet the chainstays are a tiny bit shorter. You can fit up to a 47mm tyre in the Diverge, and the Diverge has actually got the SRAM Red Eagle mullet setup, so you do get quite a different gearing to the Explore setup on the Grail. So what about Trek? What are they offering in the gravel department? The checkpoints. This is the checkpoint ETAP. Fade that back to the Grail. A few synergies there. They look like their geometry's not a million miles off. The Grail's front wheel's still sticking out a bit further, and the checkpoint's chainstay is a bit longer, but not a million miles away from each other. What about Cannondale? Okay, so they're offering up Topstone. This is the Lab 71 Topstone. I think this only comes in a frame set, actually. We fade that back to the Grail. We're sort of seeing the trend now. The Grail, again, with the front wheel further forwards, and the Grail seems to be a lot more stretched out. So the Topstone is quite a bit more traditional up the front there. And last but not least, let's have a look at the giant offering, and that's going to be the Revolt. Now, I like this bike. I really like this colour. And if we fade it back to the Grail, again, following the same trend, the Grail has a much longer wheelbase. The Revolt actually comes with the flip chip, so you can change the length of the chainstay. Got two different settings you can have there. But again, the Grail is more stretched out. The Revolt does actually come with a pretty short stem look, but there is quite a difference there in the reach, as we can see fading halfway through. So there we go, the Revolt. What do you think? If you can think of some other competitors, list them in the comments down below and we can check them out. Ooh, hang on. There was one other bike that I wanted to just show you, and that's because it made me laugh. If I type in Triban. So this bike here from Decathlon, it's the Triban GRVL. It's the GRVL 120. Cost £600, and by all accounts the Triban bikes are all pretty good, but when you compare the Triban GRVL to the Grail, it does look like it's crashed into a wall headfirst, and the front wheel has been squished backwards about a foot in comparison to the Grail, and I found that quite amusing. Has anybody got one of these Triban GRVLs? If you have, let us know how it rides. Are you constantly feeling like you're going to go over the handlebars? Maybe not, because it is remarkably high at the front, especially with this stem pointing up in the air. So there we go. That's the GRVL from Triban. Okay, so the new Canyon Grail range. What can you get with your money? Well, I'm on the website here and I've sorted by high to low. And the first thing to note is we've got three different tiers of bike. We've got the CFR tier. So that's the Canyon Factory Racing. This is the top of the top and obviously the most expensive. Now we've got three versions of that. Got two 1x versions, both with the SRAM Red Explore group sets, and then we've got the 2x GRX Di2. Now, unless I'm very much mistaken, the version we've looked at throughout in this video is the CFR Limited SRAM Red version, and then we've got the CFR Access SRAM Red version. And if I fade back and forth between those, I can't see any difference other than this paint job, which actually to me looks like this bike got left with a bunch of kids with their black marker pens. But interestingly, it looks like these specs are exactly the same, but that you're paying £1,851 extra for this paint job, which I'm finding really hard to believe. Now, I think this paint job was ridden by Carolyn Shipp. She rode it to victory at Unbound in 2023, and it's called the Grizl Duzzle colorway. Okay, so like I say, unless I'm very much mistaken, you're paying £1,851 for the Grizl Duzzle paint job. I'm out. Forget that. I'd go for this one. A heck of a lot cheaper. Okay, so that's the CFR versions, and they all come with the internal storage compartment and the fancy handlebars that we looked at earlier. Next up, we have the CF SLX versions, and that's a 1x Force version or a 2x GRX Di2 version. That's these two bikes here. So the only real difference being the 1x and the 2x SRAM Force, Shimano GRX Di2. Both these bikes come with the internal storage compartment and the nice one-piece bar and stem with the little attachment thing. The SRAM 1x version is £5,000 and the Shimano 2x GRX is £4,799, which is £300 cheaper, but it is 360 grams heavier. What I forgot to point out is that the CRF 1x versions are 8.04 kilograms. Okay, so once we get below SLX, we go down to the CFSL. SLX stands for Super Light Extreme, I think, and SL just Super Light. And the Super Light version, or the SL version, is a rival 1x, the GRX 1x, or the GRX 2x mechanical. So the thing to watch out for with the SL version of the Grail is it doesn't come with the internal storage compartment. And I also think the 1x bar and stem is different too. Let's check that out. Yep, this is the bar and stem on the CFSL7, and it doesn't have the special mounting attachment thing on it. So yeah, watch out for that. The SL, no internal storage and no attachments on the handlebars. So what about value for money? Well, this is all 8 of the Grails loaded up in Bicotic, and I've hit sort by value formula, which basically looks at the weight and the price and comes up with a score for the bike, and then we've sorted by that. And as you could probably imagine, we've got the CFR bikes, and they're coming up last, obviously with the super expensive paint job version coming last as your least value for money. But actually your best value for money, according to this, is the CFSL8 with the 12-speed GRX 1x mechanical, 2899, 8.74 kilograms. So the catch with that is it doesn't have the internal storage. If you want that, you're going to have to go more expensive to one of the SLX versions. And the first one in the value formula is this one. It's the SLX8 Access. So let's just load up those two bikes. So this is the CFSL8 and the CFSLX8. Fade back and forth. You can barely see a difference between the two other than the group sets, obviously. And the wheels. The SLX8 comes with the Zip 303 Firecrest carbon wheels, and the CFSL8 just comes with a pair of DT Swiss alloy wheels. The SLX has the electronic force group set, and the GRX is just a mechanical group set. But it still is 12 speed because that's been updated by Shimano quite recently. But obviously the problem with this is you're having to spend another £2,200 just to get that little storage compartment there. And however much I love that, yeah, I'm probably not going to spend this kind of money on a bike, especially when it isn't my number 1 bike, because that's my road bike. This would always be my number 2 bike. So for me, I like this bike. I definitely would consider buying it, but I would be annoyed having to buy the cheaper one without the internal storage. So there we go. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Let us know which version you'd buy, or if in fact you would buy this or not. And that's about it for this video. Other than the fact, I thought I'd just let you know that I've actually bought a gravel bike, and it wasn't a Grail. It was actually one of these, the Planet X Rujo. It's made of steel. I like the color. So here it is in all its glory. I love this bike. Love that color. I swapped out the wheels, which weren't great, and I got a pair of Vel Plus wheels from Sigma Sports in there that I had on my road bike. I popped on some Pirelli Cinturatos, and they're 45mm. This bike will take up to 48mm. I swapped out the seat post, swapped out the stem. The only slight problem I have is maybe I should have bought the large. I bought the medium because I'm usually always a medium. And as you can see, I've got the seat slightly far back there. But hey, she rides like a dream. Absolutely love it. And on that note, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do. And do go and check out bicotic.com. All the bikes you've seen here today, you can compare yourself back to back. Until next time.